So hello and welcome back yet again. We are back with Beka, and hopefully this one won't go over an hour for my sake. I mean, I know you guys might enjoy them when they go that long, but wowzers, that was a very, very long spate of reading. One of these days I'm going to get really good and just hit pause periodically so I can get up and, do all the undignified, like, face exercises and blah, 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 and stuff like that. But you know what? Then it wouldn't feel as authentic to me. That doesn't mean that, people that do that aren't authentic, but darn it, you guys get me warts, mistakes, and all, so you know. And I appreciate you. I really, really do. Because, not everybody, like, actually enjoys listening to the mistakes. So, I do appreciate anybody who is patient and kind with me. Anyway, I am getting ready. I have one more day before I leave for my trip, and I am finishing up getting ahead so that I don't have to worry about anything while I'm gone. I'm so excited. I think I've got it. I need to do this, and I think one more chapter of Crystalline, and everything will be golden all the way through Monday. That gives me a little bit of a buffer, just in case I'm really tired when I get home. The weather's supposed to cool off again, but we'll see. And that's what they make coats for. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I do have to remember tomorrow, well, I'm also, cleaning the house before I leave, because who wants to leave with a dirty house? Um, but I do need to remember to go out and pick the last of the tomatoes and things, because if it does cool off, it's supposed to drop down into like the mid to low 30s, so definitely frost weather. So I need to pull the unripe tomatoes off and then cross my fingers that they ripen on the counter. I think they will, and if not, well, then I guess we'll see if my son likes fried green tomatoes. Yeah, it is what it is. But I pulled the last of the carrots today, shared them around with the neighbors, and then cooked the majority of them in a actually really good stew. So that was good. It had rice and lentils and fresh carrots from the garden, a little tiny bit of beef that I had cut up, and rice, lentils, carrots, beef. I had some onion in it for my son. Not that I like onion, but I do like the flavor that onion gives. I just don't like onion. So it was good. Have leftovers for tomorrow, which is even better because that means then I don't have to cook, and then all I have to do is wash the bowls that we eat the stew out of. So, yay, planning. Every once in a while I do it. Most of the time I don't. Anyway, like I said, this is a pretty long one. Hopefully not an hour, but we shall see. So I'm just going to jump back into it. Oh, the other thing I did want to note is it messed with my head when I was doing the title for the last chapter. I'm just going to call them chapters. That it was the same date, but I'm seeing that it's just the dates that she's writing and then writing about. So the dates in this one might be a little bit messed up, but I am entering them and reading them right from the book. So yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, we're jumping back into Bloodhound by Tamora Pierce, Monday, September 17th, 247 Human Era, at 6:30 of the morning, concerning the night of September 16th, 247. Goddess bless me. His hands. They're limber and warm, lighting every part of me that he touches, and he hasn't even touched the soft secret parts. Not that I could stop thinking of him touching me everywhere once I had gone to bed last night. Achu finally climbed to the floor in disgust because I tossed and turned. She's still sleeping there. And his kisses. They came for us here at 6 of the clock last night. Dale and Hanse and the rest. We walked, the eating house being 6 scant blocks along the side of the ridge away from Serenity's. They had brought 3 more of Hanse's caravan guards with their companions, and everyone was full of good cheer. Some noble was having a birthday, and there was to be a fireworks display in the Ridge Gardens. The eating house looked out over the Ridge Gardens where the fireworks were to be held, and Hanse and Dale, having planned this party weeks ago, had snagged a corner. We would even have a balcony where we might watch everything in comfort. So caught up in Dale's joking was I that I didn't notice that we had moved to the outside of the group, and suddenly Dale hooked me around the waist. I reacted without thinking, bringing my bent arm up under the arm that was wrapped around my waist and slamming my free hand into the base of his neck. At the very last moment, I knew what I did, and I pulled my blow, but Dale still ended up against the side of a building in the small alley next to us. For a minute, we stood there, breathing a bit hard, staring at each other. Then I hung my head. "I'm sorry," I said. "You shouldn't surprise a dog." "Beka, I'm gonna hold your hand now," he said, only half joking. He reached out and he drew me into the alley with him. "I'm sorry, I've never taken a dog around before, and it never occurred to me that there might be hazards. But surely you've been courted this way before." I shook my head. I still couldn't bring myself to look at him. He very slowly put a hand under my chin, and he raised my face until our eyes met. "What?" I said, heart thumping. "I'll tell you right now, I've had a hard day, I'm bruised all over, and I'm hungry." In the torchlight from the street, I saw him frown. "Bruised?" "I'm a dog, remember? I fight with rats, and they fight back. I do bruise." Dale picked up my hand, and he kissed the tips of my fingers. "Bruised here?" I tried to pull my hand away. "Stop that! You're a flirt." He looked at me, his eyes twinkling wickedly, and then he kissed the back of my hand. "Bruised here?" I pulled at my hand again. "And you're a tease." He turned my hand over and he kissed my palm softly, his beard tickling my skin, roughened by long gripping a baton. "Bruised here?" The peaks on my peaches went so tight that I thought they might pop clean off, and I pushed at Dale's forehead. "I'm not one of your toys," I said, trying hard not to sound breathless. "I think I just found that out." And he rubbed at the base of his throat. "Never sneak up on a dog. Very important." Then he reached out to stroke my arm, and he felt at my sleeve daggers. "Ouch. Not just fists. I think I found your teeth. I'm going to check one more place. Are you bruised here, Beka?" And he kissed the inside of my wrist. My knees were going weak before he licked it. Just one little flick of his tongue, and I turned to jelly. No more sharp-toothed dog. Cool metal slipped around my wrist, and he let go. "What?" I said, trying to catch my breath. I stepped out into the street where I could see better. He had slipped a silver bracelet onto me, the Torque style that doesn't clasp. I turned. "What is this?" "You wouldn't take coin, so I got you a gift. You were my luck last night," he said. "If we don't show our appreciation, the trickster god gets angry." He tapped my nose. "Besides, you don't have very many pretty things, I'll wager. You would never buy them for yourself. That's why you need me." I scowled. "Oh, I need you now, is it?" We heard a bellow from about 2 blocks away. "I'm starving." "I think that Hanse's father was a bull," said Dale. He cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled, "We'll be there." Then he grabbed my hand, twining his fingers in mine. Yes, you need me, he said, as we trotted down the street. You need me to make you laugh. You need me to tickle your... He chuckled. My skin rippled with goosebumps. Fancy, he finally said. You need me to remind you that you're a woman and not just a dog. I yanked him to a stop, and I tugged his hand until he looked at me. You can't separate the two, Dale, I said. A dog is all I've ever wanted to be, and sometimes I can't stop being one. He put his hand around the back of my neck, warming it up and warming me all over. I don't want to separate them, he said. I think the combination is exciting. And then he picked me up by my waist and swung me around, landing me in a doorway with my back against the door. And then he did kiss me. Oh, I came all undone. He wrapped me about his arms. I got one arm around his waist and one about his shoulders, and I just hung on. He wasn't a hard kisser, or a quick, fast pecker, or one that thinks that he must suck your face off like the other coves that have kissed me. He fit his lips to mine, and he went very quiet and gentle, breathing my breath, settling his hold on me until we matched, twined about like vines. No more. I'm going all loose just thinking about it. We kissed twice more, I think, slow, taking our sweet time. Finally, he said, Hanse'll kill us if we are any later. Goodwin's going to think we got robbed, I managed to say. I was glad to hear a bit of roughness to his voice. I don't think that he would sound that way if he was just playing with me to keep his flirting skills up. So we left that doorway and we walked down the street hand in hand again. We had gone a block when he said, How many blades are you wearing? And I began to laugh. He would have felt the ones at my back for certain, and mayhap the leg ones as well. I'm used to dogging in the worst part of chorus, I said, and I don't know Port Cayenne at all. A girl needs to be prepared. Well, this walking out with a dog has proven exceptional and educational, said Dale. You will protect me, won't you? You'll have to if you keep bringing me luck. I'll have heaps of gold coin, and you will be forced to stay with me to protect my skinny gambling body. I couldn't help it. I giggled. He was so light-hearted and so funny, and I've never known anyone like him. You're not skinny, and I've seen you fight, I said. He looked at me and grinned, the torchlight dancing in his eyes. Where did you learn that kicking style? I asked. Some Shang friends of mine, who were better fighters than they were dice players, taught me. Listen, did I hurt your bruises? And how did you get them? I hadn't actually thought about the bruises since he had kissed my hand. I shrugged and said, We went about, and all about the gem sellers street, and there were 3 child stealers. We disputed, and I won. Dale stopped, and he turned to face me. You disputed with 3 rats. I put a hand on my hip, right on top of one of my bruises, unfortunately, and said, Well, I wasn't about to offer them cakes and wish them a good day. And how many children did my fine, brave dogs save from whatever those rats had planned for them? Said Dale. I looked away, grateful for the dark that hid my blushes. He sounded proud of me. It made my heart flip. A handful and a half, I said. It wasn't even a half day's work. I'd have given them over for return to their families and gone back on the street were I at home. Are we going to supper? Or not? He kissed me again, ignoring all the folk walking around us, the coves with their whistles and a word of advice, and the mots with their laughter and calls of, Lucky girl. I grabbed his wrists as he held them to my face, blushing like fire with all these folk looking at us. I tugged, but Dale wasn't inclined to stop. I told myself that no one could see my face, but it was kind of dreadful having all those people staring. Other hands tugged at us then. Hanse and Goodwin had come back. "The night is young, and we are about to bay at the moon, so come on and tell us what you want," said Goodwin, towing me along. I pulled my veil over my face. Hanse looked over at me. "Beka, with eyes like moonstones, I heard that you were up to dog work again today, both you and Clary." His eyes were serious. "Weren't you warned?" "Don't tell me that your rogue winks at child stealers," said Goodwin. She poked Hanse in the ribs, and not gently. "That's what Cooper and her scent hound were after, my buck. And a fine job she did, too." "She's not my rogue," Hanse said, rubbing at his ribs as we entered the eating house. This was a more elegant place than the Merman's Cave, though in truth I noticed very little of the furnishings. Dale had taken my free hand again and was tickling my palm with one finger. I snatched my hand away, looking to see if anyone noticed. I've never actually let a cove be so bold with me in public. For all that he was rogue, even Rosto had learned that. Burly house slave guards, so much alike that they could have been bought as a pair, stopped us. "Swords," they told the coves. "Give 'em to her." They pointed to a mott who was standing in front of a room where weapons lay on shelves. Then the guards looked Goodwin and me over. "What manner of trouble will we get here, good mistresses?" the one on my left said. "We know that you got bits and pieces tucked away under your nice dresses." So, these house guards were better than the ones at the Mermaid's Cave or the Water Lily. "They're dogs, lads," said Dale as he checked his sword. "I'll vouch for 'em," I heard a familiar voice say. Nestor came in behind us with Amber, on his arm. Nestor was out of uniform, but these guards seemed to know him. They bowed their heads, and they let him and Amber sweep on by. Nestor smiled at me and tucked a coin into a guard's hand. "Nestor! Amber! Join us!" Hanse shouted. "We're upstairs in the east corner." Amber put a hand on Nestor's shoulder, and he smiled and nodded, and Oka waved as they took the stairs. "Sergeant Harse's word is good enough for us, guardswoman," said the guard, who noticed that we had carried blades. "You can go in." "I didn't know that you were friends with the sergeant," Goodwin said to Hanse. Hanse shrugged. "Oh, everybody knows everybody when they dance between the court of the rogue and the gambling bosses," he said. "I met Nestor because I bring Amber makeup and perfume from our Barzan trips. He's a decent cove, for all he's law. And not bought law either, straight law. A cove knows where he stands with Nestor, and it isn't on the good side of a coin." "My feelings are hurt," said Dale, pouting as he joined us. "The guards don't trust Hanse and me, and we're such trustworthy lads." Goodwin gave a little push. "I wouldn't trust you farther than I can throw you, and you're a bony little bit of a cove," she said. "Look at you, toying with my poor earnest Beka. I've been hearing about your reputation, Master Rowan. 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the court of the rogue, both you and Hanse." "Lies, all of it's lies," said Dale, lifting my hand to his lips and kissing it. "Well, most of it's lies." "Caravanners have to be on good terms with the rogues," said Hanse. "Elsewise we lose too much cargo to them when we're on the road. It's better to be friendly and pay a little kind of monthly tax." "Now what's this?" Sharp-eyed Goodwin had spotted the bracelet. When she took my hand to examine it, I got a better look than I had on the street. The front was set with 3 small, clear oval stones. They had been invisible outside, but here in the lamp and torchlight they sparkled with different colors. 2 held darts and clips of blue and purple fire, and the middle one, the palest, held dots and sparks of pink, orange, and yellow deep inside. I turned to Dale, and I started to yank the bracelet off. "I can't take this. It's too expensive. He stopped my hand with both of his, and he gave me his "I'm very serious" wide-eyed look. It's bad luck to return a gift, Beka. It is, said Goodwin. He's right, said Hanse. Goodwin slapped me on the shoulder. Besides, Beka, most of your jewelry's scummer. It won't kill you to have some nice things. She touched her moonstone necklace, which is lovely. What are the stones on the bracelet, anyway? Sargent opals, said Dale. Usually you see the brown ones and the peach ones, and every now and then I get lucky and find something with clear ones. Very lovely, said Goodwin. Maybe some nice lad will buy me a present like that. We looked at each other, thinking about the opal seller who was determined to leave chorus. Then Goodwin took Hanse's arm, and they began to climb the stairs to the second floor of the eating house. The first floor was already packed. You have to be careful with opals, Dale told me, taking my arm. They're the trickster's gems. Some last for ages, and others crack and go to pieces in months. If you get them just out of the ground, you want to hang on to them for a year at least before you even try to cut them. He smiled. I'm a bit mad for opals. I suppose it's because I'm a follower of the trickster at heart. Something in his eyes, as if he hoped that I would share his love of the stones, made me do something I almost never do. I have an opal of my own, I told him, and I pulled it out. Dale halted in the middle of the stairs, pulling me to the side next to a hanging circle of candles. Carefully, he turned my stone in his fingers, his eyes finding the cherry sparks, the green flares, the yellow lights, the orange ones, and the way the pink bit set in the surrounding pink stone might suddenly turn green. A raw fire opal, he said. Not enough gemstone to make it worth cutting, but I grabbed it. I don't want it cut, I said. I love it like it is. Goodwin came back and grabbed us. Gotta save me, you two are like children. Must we tie you to a rope and tow you to keep you with us? She looked at my hand. She showed you her fire opal. She must like you. Now come on and talk while we eat. She and Hanse weren't joking about everyone's mood. They roared curses as we approached. The maids had placed us at tables that were set in a U so that they might more easily wait on us. And even better, we were in a sort of open room set off in one corner of the building so we could actually hear each other. As luck had it, I got the seat next to Nestor, with Dale on my right and Goodwin and Hanse across from us at the opposite side of the U with Steen and Florrie. Dale and I were saved more curses as the maids arrived with trays of small pasties stuffed with all manner of things. Oka, on Nestor's other side, had asked them for cider twilsy for me, while Steen had remembered Dale's wine, so we were well set. Dale asked me for my fire opal again, and I handed it over to him. Easier now that I knew that he loved opals, for all he might joke about cutting mine. When he stood to eye it next to a lamp near the entry, Nestor leaned over to me. I heard that an unnamed dog and her scent hound went on a hunt today, he whispered. Later, I got word from Deep Harbor that some city folk managed to seize 3 child stealers at their work at that exact same time. I tried to look innocent. Why are you interested? It's not me that should worry, sweetheart. It's Pearl that should worry you. I watched Dale cross the room to answer a question of Florrie's. I'm cursed tired of Pearl, I said, keeping my voice low. Surely even that daughter of a scummer troll wouldn't wink at child stealers? You willing to bet your life on that? Said Nestor. Now listen close. I have news for both you and Goodwin. He put 2 of the little pastries onto my trencher, saying, Sir Lionel won't go after the guild banks for hiding their knowledge of the coals. He says it will only start a panic. I stared, and when I spoke, I kept my own voice soft as well. But they risked the safety of the realm. I checked to be sure that Dale wasn't close enough to hear. Now I could see that he was off joking with Hanse. They can't hide that they know that there's a big operation going on, I told Nestor. The banks and Sir Lionel alike are both panicking, Nestor whispered to me. We must get word to my Lord Gorsham as soon as we can. I was told this afternoon that I am forbidden to use the Crown Courier Service to chorus anymore. Oka leaned around Nestor's back. The head at the Silversmith's Bank took the ship for the Copper Isles today, he murmured as he passed me a dish of tarts. His family and all of his servants left with him. Nestor stopped and looked at Oka. When were you going to tell me that? He asked. Oka smiled. I'm telling you right now. Dale was coming in my direction. I pointed to the tarts with my knife and said, Onion or spinach and egg? Both, said Dale, sitting down. You and Nestor looked very serious, so I thought I would delay my return. He set my fire opal next to my plate after I gave him the tarts. I handed the dish back to Nestor, who traded me for the dish of pasties, and as I did, the gems on my bracelet glittered at me. Now it was my turn to rise and go over to the stronger lights. The dancing colors in the gems were as captivating as the ones in my fire opal. Never had such a wonderful gift. Did Dale mean to try and buy me with it? When I returned to him, he was talking with Nestor about his card game. There's all kinds of variations, Dale said. In my favorite, the trickster can be any card that the player says it is. If the player has 4 ladies and a trickster, and his opponent has 4 kings, then the first player can just say he has 5 ladies and win. He looked at me. Did you like your present, sweet? You know I do, I told him, but it's still too much. Nestor looked over and picked up my wrist and inspected the bracelet. No, not as a thank you for several won games, he said to Dale. Dale nodded and Nestor looked at me and said, It's fair. Something in my chest loosened. I didn't want to feel obligated to Dale. That was good. Oka pulled his seat back so that he could see us better. Dale is one of the cleverest coves that you'll ever meet, Beka. He's worked out variations on chess, backgammon. He even reworked part of the banking laws while he worked for the Goldsmiths' Bank as a clerk. Dale chewed and swallowed a bite of onion tart. Till I got bored amongst those dusty books and papers all day long. Never going anywhere, never seeing anything, staggering into my room at midnight, and such a room! My mice lived better than I did. As Nestor grinned and Oka chuckled, Dale said, They did. I looked into their hole one night, and they were supping on sausage, ale, and cheese, while all I had was bread and cider. I tried to invite myself in, but those mice said I had no right to charge them both rent and food. I was starting to laugh by then. Then Florrie's voice rose. Don't you tell me what I must and mustn't say, Hanse Remy. It seems to me if folks stopped tiptoeing around the subject of coals and came right out and said the word, we'd all do better. She had everyone's attention, that's for sure. Hanse threw up his hands and said, Now look what you've done, you forward wench. Why not screech it louder so the whole place can hear you? All this nattering, when the world knows that coals slide through this town like scummer on a street. 1 true coin in 3, you beef-witted shave-pate, said Florrie. My girls are taking in 1 true silver out of every 3. I've not seen that before. Mayhap folk are giving them to you on purpose, jested Amda Threadgill. She was one of Hanse's caravan guards. She was also a good distance away from Florrie, as she said, For being so vexin', with your dead flowers and your rotten oranges. Pretending that you're selling them when you're not at doxies. That's what you get for looking down your noses at us mots that earn honest work and don't pretend to be better than what we are. Florrie rounded on Amda. At leastways my mots ain't half guard and half robber, she said. At least my mots give fair value for business. Hanse got into it and glared at Florrie. Hey, them's my caravanners you're talking about, woman. Florrie just looked up at him and glared. I bring up a true worry to us here in the city, and you let your fawning baggage foul-mouth my people? Luckily for us, the chickens and broth arrived, together with white herbs and rice with lobster and shrimp. As the maidservants dished out the food, everybody calmed down. Like Goodwin, I had gone all sharp, listening and watching folks' faces. A touch on my leg made me jump. I was about to jump out of my chair when I realized that it was Dale's hand, warm on my knee. He took it away. I forgot, he whispered. Forgive me. Are you always so jumpy? I was a puppy for a year. I've been a street dog since April, I said. It sharpens you up a bit. Your muscles were as hard as the table, he said, carving up some chicken and placing it on my trencher. Does your scent hound do that? When she catches a scent, does she go all tight and stiff? I smiled at him. Actually, she sneezes. Both Nestor and Dale looked at me. Sneezes? Said Dale. It's why she's named Achu, I told them. A really good scent, and she sneezes more than once. But Beka's not here to pick up scents, said Nestor. That's what she promised Pearl. Goodwin promised, I said, stabbing a little bit of chicken with my knife. I just nodded, just to be neighborly. I can't promise what Achu might get up to. Well, then I hope she's ready to take the blame for you, I heard Oka say. Warned by Oka's tone, I looked at the door, as did everyone else. 2 guards entered in advance of Pearl. With her came Jajuri the Bazir on her right, close to Goodwin's seat, and Torkel Jupe, stern and dangerous looking, even without his sword, on her left, close to Dale and me. I put my hands in my lap, and I stuck my right hand into my sleeve, touching the hilt of my closest knife. Dale slid his hand over mine, and he clasped my fingers gently and squeezed, and I pulled my hand from my blade. Why do I trust him? Still, it would be better to wait, I thought. 4 more of Pearl's guards took up position outside of our room, barring the exits. Dale got to his feet and bowed. Evening, Your Majesty, he said. You come to join us? Dale? That came from Nestor. You know we don't get on. Pearl actually threw her head back and laughed. It was a player's move, and instantly we saw why she'd done it. She had several more teeth turned into pearls just since yesterday. Was she made of gold that she could afford such folly? It makes me sick to think of all that waste. Dale Rowan. Had my lads a bit of your sack, I would rule the whole city. She was looking right at Nestor as she said that. Hanse, Steen, Florrie, and most of the folk who had to do business with the rogue got to their feet then, to show their respect. I suppose that Florrie was the last to do it, which left Goodwin, Nestor, and me seated. Dale lifted my hand and gave it a kiss, and then looked at Pearl and raised an eyebrow. This time, Pearl gave out with a real laugh. Oh, aye, sack enough for 12 men. Doesn't he have that, Hanse? Hanse grinned. I wouldn't know. I just let him travel with me from time to time. He raised his cup and said, Will you be having a cup with us then, Your Majesty? You can drink to his sack. Even I will say that it's considerable. Pearl shook her head. No, I'll not drink with you, Hanse. You know my rule. I only drink in my own court, from my own glass, and my own keg. No, I'm here to pick a bone with these 2 She started to say it as she pointed at Goodwin and me. Enough that both of us stiffened, and then she smiled, showing off those new teeth of hers, and said, "Guardswomen." She looked from me to Goodwin. "After my warning, you two went out dogging today." "We wasn't dogging," said Goodwin, looking relaxed, though I knew she wasn't. "We were searching for a lost child." Like me, Goodwin's hands were in her lap and out of view. The mother was half mad with fright. The district dogs turned her off when she didn't have a silver noble to bribe them with. Pearl grinned. "A silver noble, huh? The price has gone high. Maybe too high." "It was too high for this mott," said Goodwin. Her face had not changed, but I knew that she had noted Pearl's taunt about silver. She was seeking any that would help, and she found Cooper and me. Cooper has a scent hound. You might remember that, right? Mayhap you could have told that mother no, but me and Cooper, we're made of weaker stuff. She lifted a hand to drink from her tankard, and then set the hand back in her lap. "Are you going to kill us for taking a child to her mother?" "I don't deal with child stealers," said Pearl. "Them rats wasn't mine. Still, I would have thought you'd be more cautious after my warning." "I lost my head," I said, not wanting Goodwin to draw all of Pearl's wrath. "I've never had a hound before. This was the first time I got to try her on a scent." Pearl looked at me. "Guards that don't think afore they act, they don't live very long. Ain't that right, Nestor?" Nestor shifted, and Okas slung an arm around his neck, pulling him down. I wrenched my hand away from Dale and grabbed one of Nestor's heavy wrists with both sets of fingers, digging into him with my nails. Pearl just smiled. "You got friends, Nestor. You want to keep them, don't you?" Then she ambled out of the room, her guards stepping in behind her. Oka let Nestor go. I waited a moment to see what he was going to do. When he turned and buried his face in Oka's shoulder, I let go. "I wonder if the fireworks are going to be this exciting," asked one of Hanse's people. The laugh that came was shaky, but it was a laugh. The servants came back with a pitcher of spiced wine from the owners with their compliments. Compliments for what, they never said, but I suspect it was for not starting any fights. The meal continued with no more excitement. More food was brought and more was carried away, and at last the sweets course came. Servants began to shove parts of the wooden walls aside, revealing the balcony with its view of the park and the ridge where the fireworks were to be held. We could walk straight outside to watch, or stay where we were and still see. I went to find the privies outside of the eating house. They were hid from the view of the customers by stands of flowering bushes and trees. And a place as grand as this didn't just keep one or two privies. Just the women had a stone building with 7 stalls inside, each stall curtained off with a place to wash up after. Waiting in the line that wound around through the trees, I thought I could well have been amongst a flock of pigeons, so many bits of gossip did I hear. I hadn't expected that, not ever having been to a place like this that was so crowded. At festival season, I would keep well to the edges of the gathering so I could run for home when I get uncomfortable, as I often do. I never go to large eating houses, so how was I to know that even women who are strangers chatter to each other as they wait? "Told her the prices are creeping higher, but does she listen?" Poor thing, had twins. "Couldn't believe it. Silver coals, false as the governor's smile. You take my word." Can't be had for love or money. The merchant told me that the grape crop this year is the worst. Did you see that hussy? Walking in here bold as brass, with pearl teeth bought by honest folks' blood. I could agree with that, I thought. But I was trying to hear the mott who was complaining of coals. "Can't only deal in coppers. I would need a servant to carry my master's coin." The mott, right in front of me, said, "The problem's not that bad, surely?" The woman who stood 2 paces ahead in line turned and faced her. That must have been the one speaking of coals and her master. Are you deaf? Or blind? How much of your silver have you cut? You'll frighten talk. You'll frighten folk talking wild of such things, said the mott in front of me. I'm a businesswoman. I can't afford this talk, not with prices climbing. The mott, who seemingly kept house for a rich man, propped her hands on her hips and said, Do you check your coins, mistress? Do you? A woman coming out of the privy tapped her on the shoulder and said, Stop jawing and get about your business. The line gets longer whilst you whistle up a fuss. Aye, called another mott, and another yelled from farther away, Don't make us miss the magic. They near about shoved the mott who had been talking about her alarm into the privy. Things were just settling when 3 more motts came out, and I could finally enter. Sitting in my stall, I could hear my neighbors' whispers. Bad for business. And silver coals aren't? There's always coals. Take 'em to the silver bank, or the gold, pay your fee and get true coin. You'll also get written down in a book so it's recorded that you turned in the coals and didn't try to pass them. I dared to raise my voice, since none of them would know who it was that was speaking. What about going to your kennel? I tried speaking halfway between Lower City and Provost House District, like those tradesmen would talk. Letting your dogs know? There was a space of quiet. I wondered if I had startled them. You're new, are ya? Somebody asked. Or you're cracked in the knob, said a mott, as if they'd listen to the likes of us, unless we come in with gold in our hands. So I tried again. All right. What about your rogue? I heard naught, and finally I said, Come on. The court of the rogue lives on coin like the rest of us. They're just as hurt by silver coals as anybody. Somebody gave a laugh like broken glass that echoed in the stone privy, and another mott said, No one will rouse the rogue, whatever the cause. She'll skin you. And who's to say that this rogue don't have a hand in it? A new mott said. And if she does? Cork it, someone whispered. We don't know the rogue's business, and we mean to keep it that way. And then the air filled with whispers of women saying, So mote it be. I finished my business quickly. At the back of the stall there was a gap between the stone wall and the roof, more than big enough for a skinny mott to crawl through. Before any of them thought to look for the one who had asked all the questions, I had kited my skirt to my belt, hoisted myself to the top of the wall, and dropped down to the other side. There, I perched on the edge of the privy's stone floor, where it stuck out beyond the wall. Below were the openings to the privy pits, where the muck handlers could reach in and dump out the barrels. Breathing through my mouth because of the smell, I walked carefully down the floor's edge until I reached the bushes. Then I untucked my skirt and I shook it out, all proper again. I could sneak away, hidden by greenery. I looked at those still waiting in line as I went. No one seemed to be watching the privy door or the motts who came out of it. With a prayer to Mithros that I had been careful enough, I found a different entry to the eating house from the one I had used to come out, and went in that way. The door that I chose was tucked behind a long carved screen that also hid the covered passages to the kitchen. It was dimly lit. The servers could see if anybody stood in their way before they came out into the eating house with their trays, but at the same time no one would be able to see anyone behind that screen. I stayed there and I watched the small group that was tucked under the rise of the stairs. Pearl was there, standing sideways to me, her arms crossed over her gold and scarlet silk dress. Jupe was standing with her, and Jujuri, Hans and Steen were finishing up that little group. What were they doing out there with her? I thought. They watched the kitchen entry and the screen, their eyes darting over everyone who passed as Hans spoke softly to Pearl. I tell you, you're costing me money. Aye, and a good client. They'll never hire twice if you drop a job. Curse it! I couldn't actually hear Pearl. Hans listened to her and then scratched his head. Right, I forgot, I said. We'll go. But don't you think... Hans stopped as Pearl thrust a ringed finger into his face and shook it under his nose. I could near about hear what she was telling him. Maybe something like, I do the thinking. But it's not my job to make up what rats say. Hans and Steen made their bows to Pearl and went around to take the stairs up to the second floor again. I stepped back, deeper into the shadows, as Pearl and her guards turned, looking to see if anyone had come close enough to spy. Servers emerged from the kitchen passage in a clump, laden with platters of food. I went back outside, and I walked around to the rear entrance, just in case. Where is Hans going for Pearl? It's a long enough trip, or it requires enough guards that he has to cancel a job for one of his regulars. I can't just decide that it has to do with the colemongering, though. I'm sure that this rogue has her finger in all manner of puddings, just as Rosto does back home. I returned to Dale, who sat at our table, finishing a cup of wine. Everybody had gone to the balcony, and he looked at me and frowned. I thought you'd run away. I sat down. Delicate errands take time, and I was ducking Pearl. She was all over downstairs. Pearl can go swiv herself, said Dale, slipping his arm around and pulling me closer. I looked about. Nobody was nearby to see us. Dale kept talking. I need to give you a reason to come straight back to me. And then he kissed me, sweetly. His arms just strong enough as he drew me to his chest, and his tongue slid gentle into my mouth as I wrapped my hands around the back of his head. When we stopped to breathe, I managed to say, as reasons go, that was pretty good. Dale chuckled, and he bent his head to kiss the side of my neck, and I gasped. Then the first firework exploded and made us both jump. Laughing, Dale pulled me to my feet, and we straightened our clothes and went out to the balcony to watch the fireworks with his arm around my shoulders. The fireworks were very nice, too, what I noticed of them. Someone mentioned a piece like a flock of winged horses flying over the harbor made a brilliant white fire. I think we were inside for that one, in a corner, with our mouths together. I am kind of sorry that I missed that part of the fireworks. Once the mage's display was over, our company returned to the Water Lily to gamble. Tonight, Dale started with dice. I blew on them each time that he rolled, as a gambler's luck should, and he did win, often. The dice were fair, and the Water Lily keeps a mage at every table to make sure of that. Dale changed tables now and then, too, to keep my luck fresh, he told me. He and Hans always played together. They've been doing so for years, said Steen as we watched. Again, I had that nasty twinge of suspicion deep in my belly, where so many other things had been twinging all night. Dale did work for the goldsmith's bank. He went almost everywhere with a sealed pouch that the dogs wouldn't search because it was goldsmith property. I don't dare let my feelings blind me. Not when the coalsmithing problem grows worse every day. I like him a lot. Yet who better to be part of a ring of coalmongers? A clever man? Too clever for the work that he does, and a gambler who plays up and down the river? A trusted courier for the goldsmith's bank? Known to the court of the rogue, and his friends Hans and Steen have business with the rogue herself? Still, Dale isn't the rogue. There's that to be said for him, unlike the other cove who chases me. I wonder if Erkson has this trouble. He's been betting Cora for over a year, knowing that she is the left hand of Chorus's rogue. Still, though, is it the same? Cora won't talk rogue business with Erkson, and Erkson won't talk dog business with Cora. They read books. They go to the fair and musical entertainments, and they have plenty of friends in common, so they have lots to talk on, and Rosto has never set in play any sort of ploy that would pull an entire country down. I have no proof against Dale. I will keep my eyes and my mind open. Dale said that I could relax while he switched to a game of backgammon with a deep-pocketed merchant, so I was at my leisure to wander around the water lily. I listened to Oka sing for a while, and I watched Goodwin, Hanse, and Flory playing gambler's chance with some young nobles who had far more gold than sense. Goodwin lost as much as she won, but seeing her small movements of eye and mouth as tip-offs that I knew so well, I realized she was losing some of that on purpose. She amazes me. Here was a game that she had learned only yesterday, and she could have won a nice sum at it tonight, but she had chosen to lose. I looked at the players' coins as I roamed around. Most of the silver was marked. Had the coalmonger started this way, I wondered, trading bad silver for good at the gambling tables? And if so, was he or she mad to be dumping so many coals into the city now? More people every day were learning that the silver was no good here. How could the coalmonger make a profit from trading bad for good now when folk would test silver or refuse it outright? Unless they'd already made their fortune. Or maybe they were just stupid or out and out mad. That didn't even count the chance that the coalmonger was a foreigner bent on weakening our money so that folk would turn on each other during the winter, leaving the country wide open in the spring. If I keep thinking like this, I knew that I would get the shakes. So I went to hear Oka sing again. And when Oka was done, I returned to Dale and I tortured him by drawing my fingers down the backs of his ears and neck. I was yawning when he won his game with the merchant and collected his winnings. Turning in his chair, he lifted my hand and he kissed my wrist. "You need to work less during the day," he said, as he snaked an arm around my waist. "You just aren't wakeful enough at night." And together we went searching for our friends. Hans saw us and he put down his cards and nodded to Steen. When they stood, Goodwin and Flory did as well, to the protests of the other card players. "Time to call the night down," said Hans. "We're off to Anreaver in the morning for a short trip." To Amda and two of the other caravanners who were coming to join us, this was definitely news that they didn't know. "Boss, I thought we had that Lagan trip the day after tomorrow," said Amda. "The Anreaver is more important," said Hans. "I sent a note to Master Dendel earlier that he would need to find someone else for the Lagan job." One of the coves whistled. He's not going to like that. Steen waved off the words. "I'm tired of working for that old pinchcoin anyway. He argues over every copper that we spend, keeping him from being robbed. You want that job, Keyvern?" The man, Keyvern, grimaced. "He's a cheap piece of moldy cheese." We ambled around the room where the men could reclaim their weapons and the caravan guards talked about their various quibbles with the merchant that they were shorting. Dale and I traded kisses in the shadows all the way back to the lodgings. Once we reached Serenity's house, Goodwin went in while Dale and I found a dark spot just along the side of the house. "Dream of me," he said. And he kissed me so long I almost forgot what he had said. But not quite. "You don't want to be in my dreams," I told him. "The only ones I remember are bad." "Maybe you'll remember mine," he told me, lifting me a little in his arms. He didn't lift my skirts. I wouldn't let him. But I hoped that I would remember dreams of him after he set me down, because they would be the best of my life. He said farewell and waited until the maid let me into the house. Goodwin had waited for me at the foot of the stairs. "We'll talk about what we heard tomorrow," said Goodwin, her voice dry. "Write up anything that you fear you'll forget. I've had a bit too much wine, and I think your head might be somewhere else." "I won't forget anything," I told her. I was hurt that she would think I was too giddy to remember what I needed to for work. Goodwin smiled and ruffled my hair. No, I don't suppose you would, but I'm worn out, and I wasn't chasing a centhound today. We'll take it all apart for our reports in the morning. That was better. I went outside through the silent kitchen, taking care to wait and listen until I was certain that the yard was empty. Achu also waited, bouncing on her feet only when my hand was on her collar and I untied the rope. Once free, the silly creature frisked all around me and then stood on her hind feet, and I danced her along for a few steps before letting her go and taking her inside. I collected the bowl that I had left for her in the cold pantry, and I gave it to her in my room. While she ate, I undressed. The glitter of my new bracelet caught my eye. It made an odd picture, sitting below the arm sheaths of my daggers, but it's so very pretty and so very elegant. I put it away carefully, and then I removed my weapons, and at last, wearing my nightgown, I wrote up this night in cipher, and now it's time to sleep. Will I bed, Dale? Should I? Surely what's between us can't last. The hunt will take Goodwin and me away from Port Cayenne, or we'll finish it, and I'll have to return to Chorus. It wouldn't be practical. Not one bit. But I think I'm going to stop at the healer's in the morning and purchase a new charm to prevent babies. It's been a long time since I needed one, and I don't remember where my last one went. So, yeah, things between Dale and Beka are definitely getting serious. Also, I'm a little bit jealous of just being able to wear a charm to prevent children. That sounds so much easier than what we have to deal with without magic. And, yeah, I mean, should she? Probably not. After all, she thinks he could be the colemonger. Will she? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, thank you as always for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this chapter. It does make me laugh, you know. Beka and Dale, I can't see them being together forever, but he makes her relax, and that's a good thing, because sometimes I think Beka is a little too serious. Not a lot too serious, but a little bit too serious. So, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. And yeah, thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.